Well, let's start off with the Federal High Court in Abuja, which has sentenced the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra to life imprisonment after his conviction on multiple counts of terrorism. Justice Omotosho gave the verdict in one of Nigeria's most politically charged trials. Arise correspondent Godfrey Eshemoge has details.
What began as a quiet day in court quickly descended into commotion. Kanu became unruly after Justice James Omotosho dismissed 3 of his motions, including one seeking to halt the proceedings. His outburst prompted the judge to order his removal from the courtroom. On the issue of Kanu's extraordinary rendition from Kenya, Justice Omotosho ruled that while the process may have been unlawful, it does not strip the court of jurisdiction. He added that the defendant's only remedy was monetary damages, as compensation already awarded by Kenyan authorities. The court described Kanu as an international terrorist, citing threats to attack foreign missions and his role in orchestrating violence against security operatives in the southeast. In handing down the sentence, Justice Omotosho noted that the law prescribes the death penalty for terrorism offences, but said he chose to show mercy, citing his Christian faith. He ordered that Kanu be held in protective custody outside Kuje prison and directed that the seized radio transmitter be forfeited to the federal government. Meanwhile, Kanu's supporters have vowed to appeal the verdict.
It will not stand. Nobody is going to trample on me. Nobody is going to trample on Nnamdi Kanu. Nnamdi Kanu is not a terrorist. He's a man that was pursuing change. To pursue a separate nation of yours is not a crime. So in Nigeria today, if somebody says, don't be silly, you get convicted. Nnamdi Kanu may broadcast, and so what? And you convict him for terrorism, for mere words in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. What kind of precedent is being laid? So from here, we are heading to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal is the only court in this country, or the next court in this country, that sits as a jury.
Justice has been done. And therefore, Nigerians must, one way or the other, appreciate the judiciary. You remember just last Monday, the president was saying, at any time when Nigeria is in a big trouble or fix, judiciary has always come to the aid to salvage Nigeria. Again, the judiciary has salvaged Nigeria from the claws, from the oppression of the proscribed IPOB. The courts has also pronounced death sentence on Eastern Security Network, which was the military wing of IPOB. Today, God has brought an end to injustice, oppression, suffered by our brothers and sisters of the eastern states of Nigeria. They will now be able to sleep with their 2 eyes closed.
The judgment marks the climax of a decade-long trial. With an appeal looming, the case is far from over. Godfrey Eshemoge, Arise News.
In other news, President Bola Tinubu has asked the Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawalle, to relocate to Kebbi State over the abduction of 25 schoolgirls in the state. Matawalle, former governor of Zamfara State, was asked to remain in the state to monitor security efforts to secure the release of the abducted students. Presidential spokesman Bayo Ononuga said in a statement that Matawalle is expected to arrive in Birnin Kebbi on Friday. He's expected to leverage his experience in dealing with banditry and mass kidnapping during his tenure as governor of Zamfara State, when he successfully negotiated the release of 279 female students abducted from the government's girls' science secondary school, Kebbi. Meanwhile, in Kwara, all schools in 4 local governments in the state have been shut, fearing they could be targets of armed gangs after a deadly attack on a church in the state earlier in the week. According to Ibrahim Abdul Latif, Senior Special Assistant to the Governor on Communications, the affected local governments are Ifelodun, Ekiti, Irepodun, Isin, and Okero. Amidst reports of being wooed to contest the 2027 presidential election, former President Goodluck Jonathan says he can only be involved in active politics after resigning from the West African Elders Forum, comprising former heads of state and ECOWAS leaders. Arise correspondent Anthony Momodu reports on the celebration of the 10th anniversary of the Goodluck Jonathan Foundation in Abuja.
Ex-President Jonathan had strong words for politicians. He says Nigerian politicians need leadership training before venturing into politics to reduce the number of rascals in the political space.
And that is why I'm disappointing most of my friends. They expect me to play active role in politics. But before I play active role in politics, I will first and foremost resign from the West African Elders Forum before I can play active role in politics.
He addressed recent reports of a possible participation in the 2027 presidential election.
And for those of us who are in active politics, I still pray that whatever we do affects everybody. And we must play our politics with decorum, with sense of responsibility, not with rascality. Politics is not a business of rascals. Politics is, you are trying to create leaders. You are trying to create leaders. So you must show that you are an extremely responsible person.
Vice President Senator Kashim Shettima, towing the same line, urged politicians to learn to accept the electoral will of the people and emulate the virtues of the ex-president and his foundation.
Democracy has been weakened by adventurers, by extremists, by actors intoxicated by power, by those who see institutions as inconveniences and elections as formalities. And it is only now, as the world contends with these forms, that we fully grasp how timely and visionary it is to have a foundation solely committed to strengthening our democratic culture.
Other dignitaries celebrated the virtues and values of the ex-president and the feats achieved by the foundation in establishing the West African Elders Forum.
The key areas of intervention of the Goodluck Jonathan Foundation are, among others, in the area of peace, security, and democracy. For us, these are some of the key core values that we cherish.
That the solutions to Africa's most complex challenges often lie within. It is a flagship initiative that embodies the Foundation's commitment to African-led solutions for African problems. As we honor the past, our gaze must fixedly turn to the future. The next decade demands of us not to rest, but to recommit.
Tonight has been described as a celebration of legacy of impact, where the 10th anniversary of the Goodluck Jonathan Foundation was celebrated right here in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. The ex-president calling on Nigerian politicians to show decorum in the practice of democracy and politics. He also called for politicians to begin to get training before they seek elective positions in government. Anthony Momodu, Arise News.
All right, once again, congratulations and happy birthday to President Goodluck Jonathan. But of course, insecurity is still on the front burner this morning. And we're also looking at the news that was trending yesterday with regards to the life sentencing of Nnamdi Kanu by Justice James Omotosho. Your take on these stories, Vimbai?
Several serious matters are rising. I'll begin with, again, wishing a warm happy birthday to former President Goodluck Jonathan. And, after saying he would have to, recuse himself from the West African Elders Forum, I now just say that, his life as an elder, his career as an elder to African democracy has become become very valuable. I know Nigeria and some Nigerians may feel they need him to come back to the presidency, but they may have to drag with him with the rest of Africa because we're now enjoying his role as an African elder. But now let's take a look at some of the serious issues. I begin with security, where the Minister of State for Defense, Matawale, has been summoned, or rather instructed, to make his way to Kebbi State. Now, yesterday we'd asked the question, is it criminality, is it terrorism? And those questions remain unanswered. And I continue to ask this because just 2 weeks ago, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Assembly of Kebbi State was also abducted, but he was later returned. So it's a hot spot. But my question is, when will we stop politicizing these issues? Because this Minister of State for Defense is still not on great terms with the governor of Zamfara State. And the governor of Zamfara State has said that he has information pertaining to other hotspots and other activities in Zamfara. And of course, we well know that these bandits or these, players now work across state borders. So I do hope that there will be room for collaboration and that he will reach out to his successor in Dauda Lawal and be able to exchange information for the greater good of Nigeria. I hope politics will not interfere in this process, because even if you recall in Benue State, now we see the governor of Benue State sort of reneging on his words about, the persecution against Christians. But remember, also at the time, there was tension between him and the Secretary General of the Federation, George Akume. Again, politics playing itself out in issues of national security. So I hope that at this time, all politics can be shelved. However, there are still several allegations that too many things remain politicized, including insecurity. In all of this, I still pray and demand the return of the girls. Now to the biggest story of the day yesterday, which is, of course, the conviction and sentencing of Nnamdi Kanu. After 10 years of pursuing this trial, 4 different courts, this particular case in itself this particular trial was 9 grueling months. I think that one of the biggest losses for us is the fact that we were unable to hear a defense. I think the world wanted to hear what he had to say for himself with regards to the evidence that was presented, with regards to the allegations leveled against him. I think people would have wanted to see less of courtroom outbursts and more of well laid out arguments. Having said that, however, this conviction has met mixed reactions. Some are celebrating justice. Let's talk about the celebration of justice. I think we do have to commend this administration for the transparency that we saw in the live broadcasting of the sentencing, the live broadcasting of the conviction, which goes a long way. However, the trust deficit that exists between the people and the judiciary remains very deep, and which is why most people will still take the conviction with a pinch of salt, because they still have lost that trust. Now, very quickly, I'll go to those who are saying that, he's being convicted on a law that was repealed. Yes, the terrorism law of 2013 was repealed and replaced with that of 2022. But the Interpretation Act of Nigeria, Clause 6, does say that, if you committed a crime under a certain law and it's repealed, you can still be tried for it. So I think that argument doesn't stand. I look forward to the debate from legal minds. But the question remains, is this a case of selective justice? And I think that's the conversation that's going to be carried forward.
Thank you. Dr. Matthew.
Nnamdi Kanu was charged under the old law, the 2013 law, Terrorism Prevention Amendment Act. And under that law, the punishment for terrorism, for treason, is a death penalty. And that is why Awomolo SAN, who is lead counsel, lead prosecutor for the federal government, is insisting that, the Court of Justice Omotosho should have applied that old law, because it was under that old law that he was charged. However, Justice Omotosho's judgment, the certified true copy, is about 144 pages. I'll just try to take a random look at it. And he convicted Nnamdi Kanu on all the 6 counts, counts 1 to 6. And the reference in all of those counts is that Terrorism Prevention Act of 2013. However, the big issue is about how the trial has gone. 5 judges, and now we have reached this stage at the Federal High Court. And the main issue is the fact that the accused person himself dismissed his legal team. Perhaps if Kanu Agabi SAN and the rest of the defense team had been allowed to defend them, perhaps the outcome may well have been slightly different. There was some talk about written address under ACJA, Administration of Justice Act of 2015. That's discretionary. It's not, a case is not determined on the basis of a written address. It's determined on the preponderance of evidence. And the judge ruled that, in fact, the prosecution had proven its case and provided enough evidence to show that Kanu needed to be convicted. And in any case, he was left with no option because the accused person was asked to enter a defense. He not only sacked his lawyers, he also behaved, in a very confrontational manner in court. So, on the basis of all of this, the judge says, it was a gamble that did not pay off. So, if you look at portions of the 144-page certified true copy, it stayed very closely within the province of the law, even if there was a lot of melodrama in open court, leading to the accused person being asked to look at the court. I was looking for the portion of the judgment about the written address. And I think somewhere down the line there, the judge even admitted that he considered the written address, even if it was submitted late, just to ensure that justice was done. In any case, I've seen some reports saying the case has ended. The case has not ended. Nnamdi Kanu has the option of going to the Court of Appeal. He can even also go all the way to the Supreme Court. But if you look at precedents, it will be very difficult, to upturn the evidence from the lower court and, the position that has been expressed by the Court of Justice Omotosho. I think, and I believe, that this matter has not ended. Because of the political dimension to it, I see a situation whereby at the end of the day, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will be pressurized to apply the prerogative of mercy, pardon, and maybe the sentencing can be commuted, or the federal government can do whatever it likes, having refused to interfere in the judicial process by activating Section 174 of the 1999 Constitution, which gives, the Attorney General the power to enter a nolle prosequi, which is to withdraw the case. What I found curious, however, is the triumphalism of Chief Awomolo SAN. I mean, in open court, he was reading from a text, and I was wondering, it looked a bit unusual to me, that why was his statement already written? But maybe I don't understand that part of the proceedings. But he now came out later and addressed the press, or he got interviewed by the press, where he was saying that, now that Kanu has been convicted, there will be peace in the Southeast. People in the Southeast can sleep with both eyes closed. It cannot be so certain, because you've seen that this could also be a signal for resistance in the Southeast. However, he made more important points, namely that we are all Nigerians, that we are all victims when we don't cooperate together to secure this country, when we don't believe in the idea of Nigeria, and that as all Nigerians, we must push towards the idea of unity. Awomolo SAN also, with due respect, made an important point that, look, nobody is above the laws of Nigeria, that we are all under the rule of law. But as I said, the story has not ended. We will see what happens eventually, but President Tinubu can just grant pardon, commit the sentence, and all of us can. Then the political part can come in. The president will say, the judicial process has gone this way. Okay, let us look at this option. My personal opinion. I'm not saying that is what will happen. Now, the second story was about Matawale, the Minister of State for Defense, going to Kebbi, where 24 girls were abducted, along with the principal, the vice principal, Mr. Kuku. So that's what makes it 25. But the girls were 24. plus the vice principal. Now, the president has cancelled his trip to the G20 this weekend. He has cancelled his trip to the AU summit in Luanda, Angola. He has sent the vice president to go there. Now he's sending the Minister of State, Minister Matawale, to go and oversee the security efforts. Well, you see, this happens all the time. Under President Buhari, you see him sending even the Inspector General of Police, the Chief of Defense Staff, to relocate. Those methods didn't work in the past. What is the assurance that, the same approach will work this same time around? Matawale doesn't command troops, but we're told that the reason the president has cancelled his trip is to receive security briefings. Maybe the better idea is to have his own minister on the ground. So what the federal government has done so far is to show empathy. But empathy is not enough. Now, those girls, the important thing is to rescue them and return them to their families. The other thing that is also important is that, did you see the picture of that school? Is that supposed to be a school or a shed? Even the hostel, nobody should study under such deplorable conditions. So when we talk about the Safe School Initiative, which I said had been on the table since 2013, Gordon Brown, Prince Nduka Obagbena, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, being part of that process. This is 2025. Our schools remain unsafe. Under the Buhari administration, we were told that there was going to be the fencing of schools. Even that school is not fenced. And where the students are living, I mean, you just put the lives of young persons at risk. And then we go through all this. Look at the school. Look at what, is this supposed to be a school? I didn't go to this kind of school. I went to schools that looked better. So this again is about the story of Nigeria. This is supposed to be a hostel in a school that is owned by government. And then, of course, it's not just these girls. Some of these stories come before us. We talk, and then the stories go away. There were some women who were going from Kogi to write a promotion exam in Abuja. I think that happened a few months back. Up till now, we have not heard where they are. Mrs. Ngozi Ibeziako and other women. And even, why are their husbands silent? Their wives have been taken away from them into the bush. I've not heard their husbands talking. There's also Mrs. Ladoyi. About 6 of them. So this is the kind of challenge that we face. Very quickly, before I shut up. President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, yesterday was 68. It was also the 10th anniversary of the Goodluck Ebele Foundation. There was dinner in Abuja, attended by an international community. And it was on that occasion that President Jonathan said, well, the only way he could ever come back to active politics in Nigeria is if he resigns as the chairman of the West African Elders Forum. Now, he is the founder of that West African Elders Forum. He is the chairman of the West African Elders Forum. And that West African Elders Forum has been mobilizing Nigeria, former West African presidents to intervene in crisis situations, whether it's in Mali or Guinea-Bissau or Togo or elsewhere, providing leadership. That's a much bigger platform for President Goodluck Jonathan. I want to assume that it was a coded message by saying, look, I have a bigger role internationally, but being a modest person is not going to put it like that. To say that, well, if I resign from that position, even if he wants to resign as chairman of West African Elders Forum, you cannot erase the fact that he was the founder and he's the one who has been leading that group to resolve crisis in West Africa, to promote diplomacy and good governance in not just West Africa, but also Africa, to which he has been invited by international organizations. Now, his example reminds us that there is life after office, whether you are president or you are an editor or whatever you are. And then, yesterday was also the celebration of 10 years of the Goodluck Ebele Foundation. It's in Maitama there, very close to, well, go and find out the address yourself. Now, that foundation has also been very active. So President Jonathan is well occupied, is, very active, not just in the country, but also continentally and regionally. So I see it as a coded message. I'm not saying categorically, because in politics anything can happen. But even if it were to be otherwise, which platform will you use? The same PDP that is going through death throes. There's something they call death throes, from ICU almost on the way to the mortuary. Or is it the ADC that is still in the process of forming? Or is it the Labour Party whose secretariat is a subject of contention between Abure and Nnamdi Usman? I think that President Jonathan is giving indication that he would rather be another statesman and that he will come back to active politics when there are no more rascals in Nigerian politics. Well, we should all fold our hands and wait for that day when there will be no more rascality in Nigerian politics. I hope that day comes in my lifetime.
Right, well, that's our prayers. Yeah, we must continue to keep hope alive. Okay, well, let me start off with the security situation across the country, and in particular in Kebbi State, where the president has ordered that his Minister of State for Defense, also a former governor of Zamfara State, and like I highlighted earlier on, the fact that he had also had, as governor, had to handle a situation whereby 279 girls were kidnapped, and all were returned after negotiations or whatever, intervention he was able to make at the time. And when you look at what has happened following the Kebbi State kidnap of the girls, you would see that, okay, the president is making moves in the right direction. He's asked his vice, he cancelled his trip to the G20 summit, or postponed it, and to EU summit. He's sent his vice president to represent him, Senator Kashim Shettima, to visit the state and also see for himself what's on ground. He sent an emissary. I mean, he's done a number of things around this. But if you look at history, or you look at what's happened with the previous administration, a number of these things were done. With nothing, unfortunately, happened from that. On his inauguration day, in his inaugural speech, the then President, Muhammadu Buhari, on 29th of May 2015, had ordered that the command center be moved to Maiduguri, Borno State, which was the epicenter of insurgency at the time. He said that they would be there until Boko Haram was completely subdued, in his words. In the same vein, the president has asked the Minister of State to go to Kebbi State until things are sorted. Similar orders. The President, Buhari, visited Maiduguri, Borno State in the heat of Boko Haram insurgency. Again, as a show of solidarity was received by Professor Zulum at the time. Again, nothing has happened from that. So what we want to see from this administration, whilst we praise the efforts of this government, is that these things have been done before. But it didn't result to much, because we have seen that they were not able to deal with the real issues. It means that we're just dealing with surface issues or making orders on the surface levels, but we're not dealing with the real matters. And that's why there's a continuous call and a continuous push for the financiers of terrorism. That some of the names were released at some point. Were they investigated? What happened to that list from Dubai? If we don't cut off the roots of the problem, if we don't deal with the issues of poverty, lack of infrastructure, things that make it enticing for people to be indoctrinated, if we don't provide education in these regions, we will continue to see these atrocities, terrorism continue to thrive. And that's why, whilst we praise the efforts of the president this morning, we also say that these things have been done before and nothing has happened. I mentioned in 2015, I recall, when he made that powerful speech on assumption as president, or when he was sworn in as president of Nigeria, and a number of people were excited that, yes, now we see a serious someone taking this matter seriously. But what happened after the order? Not a lot has happened since then. And so this is just a call to say that whilst the efforts are good, we've seen it before. It's not near enough. Until the real issues are sorted, we'll continue to see this problem. So, and then when you look at Bello Matawalle himself, There have been conversations as to how he handled insecurity during his time as Zamfara State Governor. In fact, when he was appointed as Minister of State for Defense, a number of people questioned that decision because this was a man under whose tenure in Zamfara State had asked the people of Zamfara State to resort to self-help in 2022 because the matter of insecurity had taken he said that the state wasn't able to manage the situation, and so people should resort and take on guns and protect themselves. And so is this the same strategy he plans to use in Kebbi State? Because at the time there was a lot of pushback, including from the military themselves, saying that it's even illegal to do that. Beyond that, Governor Dauda Lawal has also questioned some of the decisions he made in the area of insecurity during his time as governor. So we can begin to see where the problem is. There's a case of leadership here. There's a situation of, things that didn't work in the past being regurgitated again to handle the situation in 2025. I'm not yet sure that we have gotten to the point where Nigerians can feel confident enough in this government's response to the insecurity. Yesterday, I was doing countdowns for 72 hours. Now we're no longer counting it in a matter of hours, but days. This is the fourth day that these girls have been held in captivity. And any government should be able to have arrested this situation by now. We had intelligence, what was done with that. They carted away a large number, at least relatively, and yet nothing has been done. Just promises, announcements, orders. That's not what the Nigerian people want. And I hope that we can learn lessons from the past and see where we can work better, especially for this administration. It's not just about orders or a show, but taking action and getting the girls back. Now, moving on to Nnamdi Kanu's situation, yes, a number of people have argued, some for, some against. We even saw the reactions based on that report we brought to you where, the prosecution and the defense had come out to speak from different sides, and you can understand. But when you look at selective justice in Nigeria, recall that in recent times, the justice system, the judiciary has been under scrutiny, particularly not just in Nigeria, but from the international world, because this case, when we look at cases of high interest such as this, it is not just Nnamdi Kanu on trial, it's also the Nigerian judicial system, justice system on trial. And so people would want to see how in one area, in some cases where some terrorists are handed sentences as low as 5 years, or in some instances given amnesty, or they are negotiated with in the north, terrorists who actually killed people. And then a man who, according to the counts that were, before the judges, was said to have incited public unrest and terrorism, has been sentenced to life in prison. You can understand why people like Senator Eyinaya, the former minority leader, would say things like, oh, this was predetermined, is against a particular set of people, even though I don't completely agree with him. But you can understand the sentiment when people come out to say that, because if you look at it, it doesn't seem like the same justice is meted out on terrorists in different regions. And I think that's something that we must discuss. As had been said, this is the first leg. Hopefully it would be appealed and maybe gone to Supreme Court. And like Dr. Bati mentioned, maybe the president will come in and intervene at this point, especially in the spirit of justice and ensuring that the justice system in Nigeria is not said or seen to be selective. Now, on the issue of sit-at-home order, we are hopeful that now, post this conviction, post this sentencing, let us see the impact. Now, the excuse that has been made about, IPOB, ESN, responsible for the sit-at-home order, and government failing to do its work to ensure the security of lives and properties in the southeast. Let us see what will now happen from then. What the people want at the end of the day is that they are able to go back to their work, go to school, and able to live life on Mondays, and we don't lose money in economic activities in the southeast. So we continue the conversation. I believe that we have a guest in the course of today's show who will talk more about this situation. And of course, I will continue to hear as well from, at the end of the day, from the Nigerian government.